What's up, y'all? It's Daniel the Shoemmelier, and welcome to the fifth and final episode in a series where I'm essentially counting down my favorite / best current sneaker designers and collaborators. Now, in the first video, we started off with the starting 11. Why 11? Because that's how many players start in American football. And we did have a bench, and if you want to know more about that, go back and watch that video. We narrowed it down to a starting 9 in honor of the starting lineup for baseball. We also had a bench. Go check out that video. The next video went down to a starting 5, just like the National Basketball Association. In that video, we also had a bench plus a G League where I mentioned another 5 that weren't quite ready for the big show, but that you should definitely keep an eye on. Go check out that video. And then in my most previous video, I did a Mount Rushmore, the top 4 current sneaker designers / collaborators. I know Mount Rushmore is more of a permanent thing, like a greatest of all time, but for the purposes of the countdown and these videos, I just said the top 4 was a Mount Rushmore. And now in this video, we get to the big 3, the top 2, and the number 1 best / my favorite current sneaker designer and collaborator. So let's get to it. Starting off with the Big 3, named after the Big 3 basketball league started by or co-started by Ice Cube, because there's 3 players. And on this list, there are 3 designers / collaborators. Now, unlike previous videos, I am not going to give a biography or a reason why I picked each person, because I'm going to talk about a big 3, a top 2, and then the number 1. So rather than talk about the same thing each time, I'm going to talk about the things that I liked and then the reason why that person did not make it to the next round. So our big 3 in alphabetical order: Salehe Bembury, Grace Wales Bonner, and J-Tips. That's right, I think that if you told me I could start a sneaker brand or take over sneaker design or whatever, and I could only hire 3 designers / collaborators, it would be Salehe Bembury, Grace Wales Bonner, and J-Tips. Now we move on to the top 2. And obviously, the top 2 come from the big 3, and then the number 1 comes from the top 2. So we're gonna cut out one person. So we get to the final 2, the top 2, once again in alphabetical order: Salehe Bembury and Grace Wales Bonner. That's right, J-Tips did not make it from 3rd to 2nd. Now, I am a huge J-Tips fan. I love what he is doing for Saucony, with Saucony, and to sneaker design / culture. I think you can look at other sneaker brands, at other designers and collaborators, and see how they are starting to utilize color in very similar ways to what J-Tips has been doing. Now, I didn't know much about J-Tips until he got to Saucony, just like I didn't really mess with Saucony too much until J-Tips got there. But once I knew what he was doing, I went back and learned about his hats. I listened to some of his music. He's been on a few episodes of the Kicking It Social Hour podcast here in Austin, which I produce, and sometimes you can hear my voice or see my face on camera. But regardless, a great person, lots of ideas. He is blowing up in all the big, fantastic, wonderful, good ways, and taking Saucony into a level of sneaker hype, sneaker culture, whatever you want to call it, that they probably haven't seen before. Again, I really didn't mess with Saucony until J-Tips, and I know a lot of people out there did, and they may not like the fact that now Saucony is kind of a hype brand depending on the collaboration, the colorway they release, etc. But having said all of that, when I look at the body of work of a Salehe Bembury and a Grace Wales Bonner, and I compare it to J-Tips, I think what Jay doesn't have yet is time, is the portfolio. Yes, music. Yes, hats. Yes, his own merchandise line, and of course, his work with Saucony. But I'm not sure that if I was only going to be given 2 picks, that J-Tips's biography, his resume, his repertoire, however you want to call it, is enough to put him over a Salehe Bembury or a Grace Wales Bonner. And that's, again, not taking anything away from J-Tips. I love what he does. I want more of it, and I can't wait to see what he keeps pumping out, because as of right now, I'm a fan, and everything he's produced, while I like some more than other, I think there are home runs, at worst a triple. But when we get to the top 2, it's Salehe Bembury and it's Grace Wales Bonner. Next, we move on to the number one. If I was a head coach and I had to pick the number one draft pick and I didn't get another pick for 63 picks or whatever, who would it be? Who would be the designer / collaborator that I would want to build my sneaker brand, my sneaker line, my whole look and vibe and feel? Who would that person be? And in alphabetical order, because there's only one, so it doesn't really matter. Salehi Bembury. Now, Grace Wales Bonner has been doing amazing stuff over the last few years, specifically with Adidas. And as I'll always say, it took longtime commenter, collaborator, friend, Amado, who runs an Instagram account, the Encyclopedia Sneakerica, pardon me, the sneaker profiler. And you should check out his blog, check out his posts, give him a follow, give him a like, all that great stuff. He pointed me in the direction of Grace Wales Bonner when I would just kind of like tangentially, superficially look at it. And he goes, no. Like, this is my words. This is someone that is doing important stuff for Adidas as a longtime Three Stripes fan. And he's right. Adidas and Wales Bonner is such a great match. I think that what Grace Wales Bonner is doing with Adidas is everything that Adidas thought and hoped and wanted they would get out of traction with Jerry Lorenzo, out of a Beyonce with her Ivy Park. Dare I say it, with their Gucci collaborations, which are high fashion and amazing, and there was a lot of hype behind it, and then it was over. But I think what Grace Wales Bonner is doing is taking all of the streetwear, cool aspect of a Joy Lorenzo, Fear of God, and yes, your boy Ye, and then taking into account a little bit more utilitarian kind of stuff like your Ivy Park, but also the fancy high-end fashion stuff like Gucci, like Balenciaga, with some of these big fashion houses that have collaborated with Adidas over the last few years. But when I look at what I really, really, really like, and what's really, really good, they're both Salehi Bembury and Grace Wales Bonner. Very, very good. But my tastes, my opinion, my vibe, my style weighs heavily more to a Salehi Bembury, which is why he's my number one. It's almost the same reason, but opposite, why I put Grace Wales Bonner in the top two as opposed to a J-Tips. I mess with J-Tips more. I would wear, and in fact wear more J-Tips. I have all of his sneakers. I love the style, I love the vibe, I love all that. But I think if I go with my brain and my heart being J-Tips, my brain being Grace Wales Bonner, I gotta go with Grace Wales Bonner. But then we get to the top two going into one, the brain, Grace Wales Bonner, possibly. I would imagine Amalo in the comment section down below would pick Grace Wales Bonner as his number one. I would be shocked if he doesn't. Won't be surprised or upset or disappointed. But I feel like he's a Grace Wales Bonner stan. I'm going to go with Salehi Bembury. And if we just look at the list of collaborations that he has done over the last few years in sneakers and I suppose merch, apparel, whatever, all this stuff, he has had his hands on Payless. That's right, the Payless shoe store. Do you remember Payless? I do. I sure do. Do you remember Cole Haan? He's done work with Cole Haan. Obviously, the stands out there are going to love this. He worked with Yeezy. And yes, people are going to go, everything he's done that's because of Kanye. No, it's not. He was with Yeezy, Versace, big name, high-end luxury fashion house. Of course, what most people probably know him for are his collaborations with New Balance, which are amazing. I think he is the number one New Balance designer / collaborator in their arsenal, in their starting lineup. I think it's Salehi Bembury. It may be, I think Amalo said Action Bronson, and then we get into Joe Freshgoods. I think Joe Freshgoods for me is above Action Bronson, but you have those three. Not to mention the one and dones or the starting, the newcomers like up there with their collaborations. I think that's so fantastic. Salehi is the creative director, I believe, of Crocs. The Juniper is an amazingly awesome, quirky, fantastically way too heavy shoe. I got the first two colorways and I wore them a number of times, but at some point, just like, it's just too much. It's too much. It's too hot out here. I've got shorts and a t-shirt and I'm lugging around these giant weights of shoes. I love them. I think they're amazing. They're wonderful art pieces. And if I was maybe a bigger guy with bigger legs or I don't know, whatever, I could pull them off a little more, especially on the daily. But his work with Crocs is fantastic. The Pollux with his fingerprint, which you have on both of them, obviously he had the slides in sport mode or lifestyle mode. I'm not sure what else to call it. He's done work with Vans. He's done work with Clarks. He's done work with Moncler, and then his most recent passion project, I suppose, though I guess they're all passion projects, but he's getting paid, so he's certainly not just doing it out of passion, his work with Puma hoops. And I believe a Puma hoop shoe came out. Was there a leak? I can't remember. I can't be certain. It might be his shoe. It might not be his shoe. Regardless, look at that list, that laundry list of organizations that he has worked with, and it doesn't seem like he's losing steam. He just released, or it was just released, an image of his latest kind of like faded bacon / faded red rock type shoe that has a bunch of laces. It's very exciting. I can't wait to try to get it and maybe not. It is wild that Salehi might be the guy, at least to my knowledge, and Action Bronson, but I think Salehi was like the first one to really have people trying to camp out or use bots to get New Balance. New Balance, right? I mentioned this in my last video. That lava colorway is like $1,000 for a New Balance on resale sites. Hype and resale doesn't mean everything, I know, but that tells you the weight of what Salehi is doing in greater sneaker culture for sneaker enthusiasts, not just your regular old sneaker person like me. I live in all the worlds of lifestyle and hype, but also like, I don't need that one. But you look at what he's doing. Those Junipers, at least the first one, was reselling at higher prices. Older New Balance are reselling for higher prices. I am sure what he does with Puma hoops, I don't know how that's going to be in terms of a resale thing. But when you think about right now, who's the hypest of basketball shoes? It's Adidas. It's Adidas. There's no question. There's nothing you can tell me that doesn't support the fact that right now, Adidas is the most innovative, cutting edge, unique, at the forefront of basketball shoes. This is coming from lifestyle purpose. I don't play basketball. Obviously, the AE1, the James Harden, you have all those things. Yes, Nike has LeBrons, and Nike has KDs. Nike has the Book. Nike has the Ja Morant. Nike has retros. They're going to sell. They're just fine. But I think it's Adidas, and then it's kind of like Nike. And then New Balance was trying. Kawhi just isn't the guy. Anta's probably got a little bit more action than New Balance does in basketball. I think the lane is wide open for a number 2, number 3 battle if Puma hoops and Salehi Bembury figure things out and they do it the right way. Because look, you have the AE1, you have the James Harden, you have the Dime, I think the Dame Lillard, you have, for better or for worse, Jerry Lorenzo, fear of God. Like, I think Adidas is right now ahead of Nike in basketball shoes, in hype, in culture, all of that kind of stuff. Though, the Sabrina's doing really well for Nike. An upcoming Caitlin Clark could do real well for Nike. But is that enough to move the needle to put Nike again above Adidas in basketball right now? Not at this very moment. Not at this very moment. So, what Salehi and Puma could do with hoops could take this to another level, add him to a more permanent addition to an actual Mount Rushmore of top 4 designers / collaborators, sneakers, current as of late or whatever. But I think what we are seeing with Salehi is the fact that he worked with so many different organizations and so many people. And like any artist, you steal from people you work with. You steal. And what I mean by steal is you get what they are doing. You learn it. It gets inside of you, right? And then you morph it all up and put it with your style, and then you create your own style, which is an amalgamation of everything. What do people say? Like, you are the combination of the 5 people you hang out with the most, or something like that. So like, he's taking all these different voices through like osmosis and learning and education and research, and he's creating his own vibe, which stands on the shoulders of everyone he has taught with or learned with or designed with or whatever. But regardless, after all of that, if I was Al Pacino in any given Sunday going to an expansion sneaker brand, and they said, who's your number 1? It's Salehi Bembury. Salehi Bembury, absolutely. Now, if they gave me a draft day type thing where I could get 3 best players, well, it'd be Salehi, it'd be Grace Wells-Bonner, and then of course it would be J-Tips. That's my big 3 right there. There's no way I would get 4 because there's no world that would allow that, but go back and watch those videos where I talked about the 4, obviously the 5, the 9, and the 11. All those videos to narrow it down to number 1, Salehi Bembury. What did you think? Did you think I was going to pick Salehi Bembury? I would be curious if you're just a casual observer, if you're every once in a while, or if you're an Amado type that has been messing with me for a few years. Did you think I was going to pick Salehi Bembury? And what do you think about that pick of Salehi Bembury? because I realized, and if you haven't been following along, this wasn't on purpose. I didn't intentionally single out a majority of Nike/Jordan brand designers. Nigel Sylvester made it all the way to the starting five. But after that, it was Adidas, it was Saucony, it was New Balance. Does that upset you? Does that bother you? It might upset a lot of Jordan heads, dunk heads. Now, I also realize that the most innovative collaborations at Nike are taking place in the SB world. I'm not an SB person. I like a few, but I wouldn't say that I have to run and get them. It's just not my jam. I like a number of stuff that they release. But if you're asking me on the swoosh side, who's got the most juice? It's SB. It's SB as a whole, is who they're working with and how they're getting things done. And then it's Nigel Sylvester. But go back and watch those other videos where I give you my takes on how I believe Nigel Sylvester is arguably the most important designer collaborator right now in the Nike Jordan brand stable. There we go. 5 videos, counting down from 11 to 9 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to number 1. My number 1 draft pick. My top current sneaker designer/collaborators, Lehi Bembury. Let's talk about it all in the comment section down below. This is it. This was the end for now. I'll come back in a year or so and do another one of these countdowns because you never know. Some juice might be a little hotter, some might be a little colder. I don't know. But I'm really excited about doing these types of lists or these types of conversation videos. I like sneaker review videos just fine. But like I mentioned in an earlier one, I'm not just going to put a picture of the Jordan High 85 and be like, oh, there's only 10,000 of them. What does this mean? It's not for me. And there's people out there that are already doing it, and some are doing it, could do it any way better than I ever could. So regardless, I'm going to be doing a lot of these types of videos, conversations, editorials, opinions, if you will, all sneaker adjacent, sneaker based, sneaker centric. So let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of all of these things. And I look forward to seeing you around in future videos. So to all of you out there, wherever you are, thanks for watching. Stay tuned and just chill. Till the next episode.